So the comic strip World Championship stream is about to begin.
Hooray.
There is no sound.
There is no sound. Hello.
And we are ready to go live. Hello, welcome to the Comic Strip World Championships live stream launch event. I am Sami Nysselä, your host, and joined here with me is Mattias Elftorp from Malmö, where we are at the Fanzine Verkstaden. Thank you for having us here. And next up we have Mari Ahokoivu, who has lived in Oulu before and has moved to live in Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark. And she is a comic artist. Yes. And then we have Peter Snijberg, who is a legendary comic artist from from Copenhagen. And Mari and Peter will both be joining the Oulu Comics Festival next month. And yes, so this is the second time the Comic Strip World Championship competition has been held, will be held. The first time, the winner was Jenny Henningsson with her amazing comic strip that got the full 60 points that the winner can have. And she is from Malmö here, and kind of like the Eurovision Song Contest, we are hosting the next event at the last winner's location. So Mattias, since we are here at the Fanzine Verkstaden, could you tell us a bit about this place?
This is collective workshop, so we have members around 50, 60, 70 something, and they can come here and use our equipment. So we have copy machines and screen printing equipment and large format printer and things like that. So it's for self-publishing comic artists.
Yeah, there's lots of beautiful artwork around here, as you can see. Even behind us, it's quite inspiring for me, at least, to be here. Yeah, and can you tell us a bit about yourself as an artist?
I've been making comics for 20 years, something like that. My main comic is called Piracy is Liberation. I haven't done anything with it for about 10 years, but I'm just about to start working on book 12 in the series. So that feels really good. I'm also part of a few different collectives. So the Fanzine Verkstaden is run by Tusen serier and CBK. CBK is publishing an international art and experimental comics anthology. Tusen serier is also has kind of an international focus, but more locally based. So immigrant comic artists mostly. It's been a while now since we published anything new, but we published maybe 20 books and have a few coming probably next year. The third one is Worm God, which is me and one more artist which is mostly just exhibitions when we feel like it's our own comics and so on. Yeah.
So there's lots of self-publishing and underground comics here, and quite a bit of international comics influences in Malmö comic scene. Yes, so we are here in Malmö, and behind the stream we have Harri Filppa, the the Oulu Comics Center director.
Hello for everybody.
And of course you're all here for the actual launch of our competition, and you can start your work on your comic strips as soon as we launch the theme as well as the hashtag with which to post your work. So the rules of the competition are that we will give the theme soon, and as you make your comic strip you can post it on Instagram publicly and join or input this competition hashtag on your comic strip, so that we will find it and other people will be able to enjoy it. And your work needs to be previously unpublished, and it needs to apply to the theme. So if it doesn't seem to apply for the theme, then it might get disqualified. But the comic strip is unrestricted in format and style. So how many frames and what kind of style you would choose to use, it's up to you. But the language needs to be English, because our jury, the judges who will give points to the comics works, are from 3 different continents and from 4 different countries. And I will now announce our esteemed judges. We have Luke McGarry from USA, and Nan, also from USA, Daniel Og from Brazil. Nan and Daniel Og have both been resident artists at the Liminka School of Arts in Finland, so we have that connection. And then Katarina Netolitsky from Germany, and yours truly, Sami Nyyssälä, myself. And you can find the judges and links to their work on the oulucomics.com website for inspiration, at least, or to find some more cool artists to follow. And each judge gives up to 20 points for your work. This point system is copied over from ski jumping. So each judge gives 20 points. The highest and the lowest score will be discounted. So the 3 middle scores make up your total score. So your maximum score would be 60 points if all of the judges give you the full 20. And then, the deadline for the competition is next Sunday, 31st of October, the last day of the month, at 16:59 p.m. So you have exactly 5 days. And if your work is posted late, as per the ski jumping rules, we will deduce your point score by 1.8 points per each hour that your work is late. But these are the rules. You know what you're getting into, and we are ready to announce the theme. Yes, the theme of this year's Comic Strip World Championship is peace. And the hashtag with which to post is hashtag Peace Comic Strip altogether. You should be seeing the hashtag there on the screen right now. So write it down or check from the oulucomics.com website to make sure you have the right hashtag, so we will find your work, and you can start your work. We yes.
God, I kind of felt like the meme of the lady who's like trying to figure out the point system when you were talking about the points. I trust that the ski jumping people have like made it very, very well, and it's very, very good point system. But I did feel like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's just maths.
Yeah. Luckily, I don't have to do it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I'm very happy that I'm not the one. Like, it's good that Harry is going to do that.
Yeah, Harry will do the numbers. Yeah. But it's good that we have you guys here, because you have worked on so many different kinds of comics. So, for inspiration for different kinds of approaches to comics, Mari, you have been working on like you've done big graphic novels, as well as illustrations and various kinds of applications of comics. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess I've done almost everything except strip comics. Well, I mean, I have done some like small stuff, so that's why I kind of I have a very big appreciation for people who can actually do strip comics. I mean, especially if they're like newspaper strip comics that you have to do like every day. But yeah, I've been my biggest work is graphic novel Oxy that actually comes out today in US in English.
Great.
It came out in Finland in Finnish 2018, and that was like 400 pages, I think, something like that.
The book won awards as well.
No, actually it didn't.
Oh.
It got nominations.
It should have.
It got many nominations, but I didn't actually win anything. But let's hope with the English one. But then I've been doing a lot of children's books, illustrations, and because I've been doing a lot of comics, like comics is my main stuff. So I've been like using comics in the comics way of illustrating in the kids' books also. Like we did with Laura Ertimo, we did this children book about climate change, weird weather, ihme ilmat in Finnish, and virrikt värdel in Swedish. And I used a lot of like it is a fact book. What is it called? Like a non-fiction book,
yes,
for children. Yeah. So we used a lot of comics to kind of have a story in it as a like, because it was a lot of heavy stuff to talk about, and then it was really good to have this like a lighter moment with comics, which you can do really well, I think, with comics, that you can have something like a really heavy subject, like, you know, like, I don't know, Art Spiegelman's mouse or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And then you can like not make fun of it, the subject, but actually make it like easier to digest in a way, because it doesn't feel that heavy when it's in a comic form in a way. So that's one way to go around.
Yes, and comics can be very engaging, like easier to get into, I think. Yes. But also, Peter Snijberg, you have worked on many kinds of comics throughout your career. You worked with many American big brand publishers on like DC and Vertigo, on comics such as Starman and Preacher, and you've even worked with Donald Duck comics.
Yes. Yes. I've not drawn, I've written some Donald Duck stories. Sorry.
Yes, and this year at Oulu Comics Festival, actually, Kumiorava Publishing will publish your book Marlene.
Yeah, which is a Danish album I did some years ago, but it's finally coming out in Finnish now. Yes.
So, what are your inspiration? What has kept you in comics and in such many ways?
I don't know. I just love comics. I've always loved comics. I've drawn comics since before I could write, and I'm always gravitate towards comics, and I'm always happier when I'm drawing comics than when I'm doing any other sort of work. So comics is just my medium somehow.
Your way to express.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. It just seems to be the most natural. It just seems to be the thing I was born to do. And when I do other things, I do children's books and things like that. But it's always a great pleasure and relief to come back to comics. It's always what feels natural somehow.
Do you have a favorite type of comic to work with, or a way to work?
I work a lot of in stuff that's a little like in the horror genre or something like that, but I also like stuff with humor. I don't think there's a lot of stuff I think could be interesting to do, but there's not that much. I've done some historical stuff and things like that as well, and sometimes things that are a little mix of historical and horror, and so I like most aspects of it. But I think what I really like about comics is it's the storytelling, it's the medium itself. So I would be happy doing most things. I think I don't think I have well, horror is fun to do, of course, but it could also be fun to do a lot of other things.
Yeah, it takes a different kind of sensibility for a different kind of genre, I think.
I would say if one thing I would say, I always prefer that there should be some aspect of humor in it. I find it a little difficult if there's not something that's funny about it.
Yeah. Have you worked on comic strips?
No, I have never had the pleasure.
Why is that?
It just never happened.
Yeah.
I mean, a comic strip. Well, nowadays, of course, you could, but when I started out, comic strips meant that you were working for a newspaper, which was good because it was money, but it was also really hard work. But it was just never. Most comic strips, at least in Denmark, would be humor comic strips, and which could be fun to do, but it's never been. I don't think it's ever been my genre like that. So it just never happened.
Yeah. But if you were to do a comic strip, and you would take our competition theme of peace, how would you approach it?
I was thinking about that. I think it would be fun. We were talking about the whole lockdown situation. I think I would do a story about somebody who's at home in his apartment that has to work and has really noisy neighbors. So how do you get peace? I mean, it's under lockdown. Nobody's going to notice if your neighbors are suddenly very, very quiet.
You're using my life now.
That's a good setup. Yeah, nice.
Sorry, it's just like that. That's a really good way of like thinking, like, because peace is something that you think first, just like word peace and all that. But there is a really good like twist to it that you don't have to take the first thing that you think about, but then you can kind of think what other stuff peace means.
Yeah. How about you, Mari? Yeah. Yeah. How would you approach the topic?
I don't know. It is a really difficult one. Yeah, I don't know. How would you?
Yeah.
I'm not going to give any ideas away either, but no, I'm not. Yeah, we can't be in the competition, so it's.
Yeah, because we heard of the theme 2 hours ago. So.
Yeah.
So we could have started now.
Yeah.
We could have started now.
You already did.
Yeah,
Yes,
we already did our scripts.
Yeah. It is a really hard subject because it's like the concept itself is without conflict, kind of, at least on the surface.
But then it's like also the thing that, like, the search of peace is its own conflict in a way.
Yeah. I'm thinking. I mean, my first reaction I would probably do something about war, just to have something to work with and then work towards peace in some way. maybe something about Sweden being neutral in war, which we aren't anymore because we had troops in Afghanistan, I think. So maybe something about that. But yeah,
Or you could do take it completely literal and do a story about peace, like like a veteran story, like a guy returning from war. That would be a story about peace.
Or then you can also use it as I think I would maybe take it in
We're going to rule everything because everything we say, people are going to like, oh, now I can't use that idea.
True. Well, I was thinking that you can also do it in a kind of like a more metaphorical way. That's like a thinking, like for example, like colors. Like what is peaceful colors? How do you create peace in a drawing, like as a like a visual way?
Yeah, like meditative strip comics.
Yeah. Ooh. Like what is it called? Headspace in a comics form.
Like three panels with just the most peaceful color, nothing else.
Oh, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, Mattias, have you worked on comic strips?
I think once, one of the first times I actually got paid to do comics was 2 strips for the catalog of the Malmö festival, I think. But it was strips like this, not like this. So I don't know if it counts. But it is really hard, I think. I'm more I want to work with bigger stories, like many pages, to be able to give the story the space it needs. So a strip, it's really hard.
I do kind of like how internet is kind of breaking the strip comic format in a way. Because I also did because I haven't done like actual strip comics that much, just a couple of times. But then like I did this last year. I did a webcomic called Sound Off, and that was kind of easier because then I could like it wasn't so restricted. Like I could have like 5 panels in one and then like 3 panels in the next one, or like do like a longer one and or that. But you couldn't do that in the newspaper strip comics.
Yeah. For myself, I think comic strips they feel like my medium, because I think maybe a bit too much through jokes. So I might be a bit annoying company sometimes. But yeah, even if I try to work on a longer story, I still need to cut it down into like shorter segments, like I would work on a strip. And I think the rewarding thing for me is it's a bit like a puzzle. So when I know a joke or a point that I want to make, and then I can break it down to the best way to present it. It's like making a haiku poem. Yeah. But it's rewarding once you get it just right. Or yeah. Yes, but comics is a good medium for everybody in a way, since all you would need is pen and paper and some time, I guess, and food. Yeah. And do you think that's how did you start with comics, or like how do you go up from just a pen and paper and time? How does that turn into comics?
That's a very good question. I think I was drawing comics before I was drawing as such. I don't think I was. I think I was. Maybe I don't know. Maybe when we get back to the age when you can't remember. But I think the storytelling thing was in everything I did from the very beginning. I think I don't think I thought of the drawings as something in themselves, but as part of telling a story, as far as I can remember.
Yeah, I think that's important thing when you are doing comics, that you remember that it's not about just the text and it's not about just the pictures, but you have to combine them and they have to work together. Like it doesn't really like matter how your style is or how well you draw, but it has to work with the story. Like it has to be something that you kind of lose something if you don't. I mean, of course, it can be silent one, but then it's like the story in it that you have to kind of understand through the pictures. But that's also like even if you have text in it, it has to also be like the story has to come across with the like pictures.
Yes, there's the old rule of show don't tell. Yeah.
Although I will say I've been reading a lot of pre Comics Code American comics recently, and they are really, really wordy. There's a lot of word in those, and I'm kind of thinking it could be interesting. I think it's also because writers are. I mean, comic book artists are very. We are hardworking people because we have to. But writers nowadays have gotten to be very lazy. They don't have to write very much. But it's kind of interesting to read those books that were really or comic books or strips that were really, really word heavy, because it gives it a different. They're a lot more meaty. You can tell a lot more story. And like I was just a very different thing, but I was just reading a collection of the Rocky strips, the Swedish comic book strip, and he uses a lot of words. I mean, most of them are like 2/3 words and then a little picture in the bottom. But it's kind of interesting that nobody outside of comic strips maybe use that anymore. But it could be interesting to see people using more text just to. But then again, that would require them to write a lot of text, of course.
But I'm also thinking like those comics before the comic code, like they still used, like even though there was a lot of text, they still used like gags and like especially horror effects in the like the picture. Like that if you just read the text, you didn't get the whole picture. So it's like it doesn't really translate like how much text. But it is true that it's like the text amount is getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah, I've been thinking some comics are almost like based on one-liners. At least a few years ago in US comics, there was a trend like certain writers used very little text and relied more on the images.
Yeah, or if writers would get more ambitious and start slightly illustrating the text.
Or maybe because they were emulating movies more.
That makes sense.
Maybe because comics, maybe back when people were reading books, comics were actually like emulating books more. Now because people are just watching action movies on Netflix and Disney Plus, they're just trying to emulate movies.
I actually like. I have to say that I do think of my comics more as a animation and a movie than a like a literal book. And I actually do read a lot of like movie like how to make movies books to kind of get like some inspiration and ideas on the storytelling in them. So I'm one of those people.
Yeah, for myself, I see the gags as like in my writing, it's kind of like I'm writing stand-up, but I don't have to risk myself.
Yeah, but movies are probably the most similar art form in the way you tell the stories with comics.
Yeah, there's the storyboard artists and yes.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting. I read an interview with Will Eisner once where he said that he thought that was wrong. His idea was that comics were more like theater. Actually, he thought it because that was what he had been growing up with apparently. So he was like, I think there's something about that because we're still. Even if they have tried to do those widescreen comics in the US, the big superhero stuff that's like you say with one word balloon and it's all like two panels per page or something like that. But it's interesting if you think about it, how that it's more like theater, so it's more like based on dialogue and intimacy with the characters. Like for instance, you say stand up, but the Rocky strips that Kellerman does is like that is could be very close. You could imagine him recounting these stories as he's on stage, for instance, and just acting them out himself. It could really work as stand-up.
Yeah. And that's how many of my work starts. It's just some stuff that I say in the coffee break, and I keep on repeating the joke. I have to write it down.
That's actually that's a really interesting that you say that, because when I was doing Oxy, my graphic novel, I got this one note from one publisher that I was showing it to, that I should think of the panels more as a stage, and like to like set them up as a stage, and that actually helps quite a lot, and it works really well with the comic because it is sort of like fantasy type of comic, so it kind of gave it as a nice like this mystic feeling when you think of it as not a like a camera that's filming something, but actual stage where the characters come in.
But yeah, that also makes me think how with a comic to get a good flow for your comic, you need to be kind of economical about the set pieces and you know how you set up the stage, so you can do all the tricks and the plays.
Yeah, and then that you don't have to throw them again as a lot of stuff many times.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Have you had any moment that you've been writing or drawing something, and then you just feel like, no, I cannot do it this way. It has to be a comic.
Sorry, I didn't say the last bit again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that you that you realize that you're trying to do something else than a comic, but you realize that it's best as a comic. So you cannot express yourself in just writing or just pictures, but you kind of get the sense that. Or do you already think in comics?
I did when I was at school. I did like all my what is it called? Like when you were studying French or studying Swedish or something.
Like a voluntary.
No, but like when you had to write like 50 words thing, assignments or essays. I did those in comics form.
Oh, nice.
And I always got like from Swedish. I always got like 2 out of 5 for the actual words. But like 5 out of 5 for the comic. So it was a very good way of kind of like distracting the teachers. But yeah, so I'm thinking about in comics form all the time.
Yeah, I don't think I've expressed myself in any other way either. I mean, I've done some children's books, but they're like easy reader books with heavily illustrated, and I've illustrated them myself. So it's I don't think I've. I mean, it's fun working with language, but it's not. They are kind of like comics, just with much more words than pictures.
Yeah, I think I always know when I start something what form it should take. I can't think of anything where I started doing something and then I thought this should be something else. Because I mean, comics are usually the first option. And then in some situations you have to work with just text or just image, but those are just things you get paid to do, so you don't really have a choice.
Yeah, it's happened to me that sometimes I work on different mediums, like making a video or such, but then of course to get to the point, I make a comic about it, because that's the way I'm used to working. And then once I actually make the video, people say like, no, but the comic was so much better. Like, ditch this.
I thought of there was an exhibition we were going to do for one of the festivals we organized here, and the theme was transgressions, and that's all I knew. And I was trying to think of, I had to do like 3 or 4 images, and I couldn't really think of anything, so I had to make a comic first and then take images from the comic to do in the exhibition. So I got a book out of it unexpectedly, with the soundtrack.
Nice.
So that was nice.
That's cool. Yeah. Have you thought about synesthesia with comics? Like there's the text and the image, and we put them together in our heads to make a story. but do you incorporate sounds or smells or other kinds of sensations? At least for myself, I do. When I try to express something in comic, I know a song that goes like what I'm trying to draw. Do you have similar inspirations or?
I've used some. I've experimented some with like small animations, so movements with the comics, and that is kind of difficult when you know like you have to have the like where is the line, like when is it animation and when is it still comic, even though it has like a moving parts. And I think that's really interesting, like to kind of experiment with that. But yeah, I don't really use like. I mean, even though smells, that sounds really interesting.
But it's interesting you mention it because it's one of the things you actually can do. I don't know if it's technically what was the word again?
Synesthesia.
Synesthesia, yeah. I don't know if it's technically synesthesia, but comics is one of those mediums where you can actually, because you can, for instance, illustrate a smell. You know the picture where you have a smell comes wafting by somebody's nose. You can actually use a visual medium to show a smell or a sound by sound effects.
Yeah.
So there is that is part of the comics vocabulary if you use it properly.
Yeah, I know in one comic I made, I tried to make shapes to illustrate music. And I did some things with soundtracks, but that's just is not connected to the story really. It's more like something you can listen to while you read. Sometimes I have, a feeling from a song or something that I want to translate into comics. But it's not really synesthesia. It's more like I want to do this, but in comics form. Then you try to solve that somehow.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the specialities that comics has is that everybody can read it at their own pace, and that kind of is the opposite of music. And that, I think that's, for me at least, that's the reason why it's so difficult to kind of put them together.
Yeah, that's I heard a beautiful thing that some wise person said that in comic form only you can take the flap of a butterfly's wing and turn that into a whole experience that you can always return to. But yeah, I'm asking difficult questions because I'm trying to dig out some inspirations also for our viewers. Mattias, what inspires you?
Depends on what I'm doing, I think. I mean, I read a lot of comics. I read some books. I watch a lot of movies. So I guess the inspiration is a mix of that. But also sometimes it's more like a provocation is a better word. Like things that happen, political events, stupid stuff you find on the internet. Something that makes you like, I have to address this subject somehow. So that becomes an inspiration. I guess that's the most common one.
So it's your outlet, your voice to join the discussion. How about you, Mari?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess I also like, I read some comics, not so much these days. I have to get back to it. Sometimes I like if I've been working with a comic, I can't really read comics at the same time. But yeah, like movies and like all other arts mediums are really good. But I think it's more like this, like, 'cause it is like you were also saying, like it is this medium that it's really natural also for me to kind of use. So it's kind of like sometimes also a need to do something or like express yourself, and then comics form is the way for me to do that. So I guess the inspiration also comes from that like need to like put myself out there, I guess.
And if people pay you money for doing it, that's also very inspiring.
That is very, very nice. Yes.
No, I think I would agree with Mary. I think it's something that takes your interest, and then comics is the way to, is the tool you use to. I mean, mostly it's just because you get a funny idea or something. But I think you can say it's also maybe a way of examining a subject that takes your interest. Like you get interested in something and you want. It can also be relatively abstract. Like how can I tell this, and how can I make this punchline work? How can I get this idea across, and then how can I do this in comics form? And you get interested in the technical aspects
So
of
it's
it.
like a
and
challenge.
yeah, something like that, and just a need to express some story or idea or wherever that comes from.
Yeah. Did you have something? No. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, this being the World Championships competition, so it's open to everybody in the world, and comics are a good medium for people getting over their language and cultural barriers as well. We can express so many kinds of things.
What do people win?
Sorry?
What do they win?
In this competition.
Yeah.
The glory and the title of the world champion, of course.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do they get invited to the next festival?
Yeah. Yeah, of course, absolutely. And
so the further away you are from Finland, the bigger the prize.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But there's, of course, there would be limitations of awarding or rewarding people in an unknown country. So we're hoping to honor you in the best way we can, being the recognized world champion.
Okay, sorry, I just got curious. I just realized
that's a really good question. Yes. Yes. Yeah. But have you had a situation in your career or work where you've managed to reach to people in different cultures, or you could communicate something that can cross languages or cultures?
Well, comics can, of course, especially if they're silent, comics can cross barriers. But I think it's interesting that of course you go into questions of what is the definition of comics and stuff like that. But it's interesting that you can look at I can't remember his name, but I was at this exhibition in Berlin a couple of years ago where there was this Japanese guy who had his sketchbooks were on display. He was from the 1850s, I think, or something like that. I can't remember his name. But the interesting thing was that you can look at those.
Could have been Hokusai, or
yeah, it probably was. Yeah. And you could look at his cartoons as they were actually, and when you're looking at them, you can sort of wordlessly see the idea. What is funny about this situation? What is it that has caught his eye? Of course, that goes for all art, but especially with comics because it's so expressive and it's not very abstract ideas. It's very concrete ideas. It's what's funny about this guy's nose, for instance, or something like that. And you can see that even across a very, very a huge culture gap and 150 years. You can still see, you can still connect with the experience that he had when he did that, which I think is. But with if we do it, that's difficult to know because you only know if somebody comes up to you and tells you that they've, and it's, I mean, that doesn't happen that often, of course.
Yeah, and I guess it's like there's the feminist saying of personal is political, and like I've found that the more I do something that I find very personal and specific for me, more people actually connect to it.
Yeah, the more actual you get with your person, the more relatable you are.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we're
yeah,
all
yeah.
we're all are all people. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not sure if this is the answer to the question, but I had this thing a few years ago where I was a friend of mine who was from Iraq wanted to have a collaboration, so I would write the script and he would draw it, and then he backed out. But I found another one also from Iraq. But the thing is, when I thought about it, I wanted to do it bilingual, and since you read Arabic in the other direction than Swedish or English, that became the whole idea for the comic. So it's a book where you read one story from one side and one story from the other side, and then they meet in the middle and they're connected to each other. So
That's so
the
cool.
whole thing came during a train ride, just from that idea of like you read it from different directions. So what can I do with that?
Yeah, really cool idea. Yeah. 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 For myself, I've done this semi-factual. It's factual comic book. Learn Finnish without studying, and in that I've had experiences with many Finnish immigrants to Finland who have had very similar experiences with Finnish language and the challenges and the awkward situations. So it was fun to collect them in kind of a guide form, that this is what you're going to end up facing if you try to learn Finnish. It was quite well received. I also found this, that it's the personal experiences translate really well. Yeah. Yes. Do we have any questions from the stream? Everything has been very clear so far. Yes. 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 Do you have any questions? Yes.
To each other?
Yes.
But we already talked with that before we started.
Oh yeah. What did you talk about?
Oh, sorry.
How did I end up with this?
I just told to give it to you.
Okay. Maybe if maybe you should we were talking about when we were walking around before that there was a lot of comics people from Oulu. Maybe you could, for the benefit of the audience, if they're not from Oulu, explain why there's so much comics culture connected with this city.
Yeah, that's a really nice question. So we have the Oulu Comics Center, and we are doing the Oulu Comics Festival, which has been going on for 10 years. And Mari, yourself are from Oulu as well. You have been part of the Oulu Comics Center from the very beginning.
Well, I wasn't part of the comic center. I'm just looking at Harry laughing, because that was that's Harry Filppa did that after I moved out from Oulu. But I did start like the Oulu Comics Association is. I mean, it was really active in the 80s, I think, and like then it was kind of in a like a hiatus form, and then me and Harry kind of started that again, or like brought some life into it again, and it was kind of easy because there was a lot of comic artists living in Oulu. Oulu is Oulu is the biggest city in up north of Oulu, of Finland, so there is of course a lot of people already there. There's Liminka Art School that's next to Oulu, and there's a lot of comics, young comic artists there. I've myself have also studied there, so it was kind of easy to bring people together because there was the school where the young kids were, and then there was many like professionals working in Oulu that were also interested to kind of connect and do that.
Yeah, that made me think about how it's kind of cheesy to say that it's the Nordic nature, but there's many computer programmers and artists and musicians do come from the north. These pastimes are really popular, and it must be because it's dark and cold and boring.
There's nothing else to do.
Yes. Do you think the same way here in Malmö and Copenhagen?
I think for Malmö it's a lot to do with the comic school because it's been around for 20 years. So each year a bunch of people move here, and now you can go there for 3 years. So I mean, I moved here for 20 years. 20 years ago to go to the comic school, and then I stayed. So it's kind of hard to move around in the city without seeing another comic artist.
Yeah. I think growing up in the 70s, there was like one TV channel, and you saw Star Wars once, and that was the one time in your life you thought you were going to see that movie. And it's no wonder you started making up things by yourself.
Yes, we have the International Comics Residency in Liminka Art School, which is cooperated with the Oulu Comics Center. And our current resident artist is Daniel Og from Brazil, and he is our fourth artist, resident artist, and the program has been very well received. We still keep in touch with our previous resident artists, also in form of this competition. Yeah. But Mari, have you been to the Liminka School of Arts?
Yeah,
Yes?
I was there. I was there for 1 year in 2004. It has to be something like that. Yeah, and I was also in Malmö school for.
Yes.
I was in the third year for the semi-professional year there in. I can't remember what year that was. So yeah, but it is kind of similar in Oulu and in here with that like comic school. It brings that kind of like buzz and brings new people in, and yeah. Yeah.
We should start a comic school in Oulu. It sounds like that as well.
Well, I mean, Liminka is close
Liminka
enough,
is-
so
that's true. We have one.
yeah, you have one already. So.
So, Harri, any closing statements? Yes. So, thank you very much for the discussion. It was
Thank
really
you.
nice.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for coming here to us. It's nice.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's a pleasure to be here again. Like since the last 2 years have been quite restricted for travel, so it's exciting.
Yes, this corona time has been a very mess, but it's very nice to be here in Malmö over a long time. Well, maybe we use the corona passport on the border, maybe not. We don't use
Yeah,
because
right.
there wasn't any.
yeah,
Any- Yes, I had it, but nobody asked it.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the last year's comic strip comic strip world championship competition's theme was Corona, and I recently read through the old entries, and they were really cool, but now they seem like ancient history in just
a
one
lot
year.
has happened in a short time.
Yeah, it was when you have a topic that's too topical, it ages
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, we have the next issue of CBA is being printed right now, and the theme is placeholder, as in Corona. So just after the restrictions were dropped, now we're catching up with the anthology.
So thank you for you viewers so much for joining us, and we hope to see your entries and enjoy this competition.
And see